Hello, welcome back to another series of the Rippling Pages podcast. Interviews with emerging and award-winning writers, all about the art and craft of literature. I'm starting the new series in the same fashion as my old series. Not with one guest, but two. I'm joined by Erica Mou and Clarissa Botsford to discuss the translation of Erica's debut novel, Thirsty Sea, published by Héloïse Press. But there's a good chance you've heard Erica before, quite literally. She's a singer-songwriter with 6 albums to her name, and her first album saw her nominated for MTV's New Generation Award. She's turned, however, to the novel form, with Nomade c'è la sette, originally published in Italy in 2020, is now being translated and published by a new press championing international female writers, Héloïse Press. Erica's novel focuses on a woman called Maria who, on the surface, would appear to be living a comfortable life with the pilot, Nicola. But as Nicola starts to try and control Maria, Maria sees herself confronting not only some dark truths about her relationship, but also her past. And it's Clarissa Botsford we have to thank for that translation. And there's a good chance you've heard Clarissa's name before, too. A translator of novels from Italian to English, Clarissa has translated books from publishers such as Europa Editions and Other Stories, among many others. Her recent translations include Satya Naspini's Oxygen and Leah Levi's Tonight is Already Tomorrow. Clarissa also plays the violin, so let's welcome my literary and musically talented guests who join me from Rome and Bari. Erica, I want to start with The Sea. So the book is called The Thirsty Sea, but you've also produced an album called Contro le Onde, which in English means Against the Waves. On that album is a song, Dove cadono il fulmini, which translates as Where Lightning Strikes. And the lyrics in English mean, I always know which way the sea is. I always get lost, but I know which way the sea is. In your novel, The Thirsty Sea, this does not seem to be the case, and the sea does not represent the same source of stability. What has changed since you wrote that song and started writing this novel?
Actually, Liam, nothing changed so much because I grew up in a town on the seaside in the south of Italy, and I'm talking to you from there. So for all my life, the sea has always been both a guide, like a companion, a friend, a reference, but also at the same time a boundary. Something that I needed to cross in order to grow up, in order to be myself, in order to discover the world. So like a danger at the same time. So I do love the sea, but if you think about it, even in the song Dove cadono I fulmini, I say that I always get lost, but I always know where the sea is. But the song is called Where Lightning Strikes. So where there is a danger even in that case. The sea is the place where lightning strikes. So I think that the sense of love and danger are both in that song and in this novel, in the title Thirsty Sea.
One of the refrains, or one of the things that's repeated through book is this idea of the sea being thirsty. Thirsty sea, never trust the quantity. So for Maria, as we sort of learn more about Maria and the things that have happened in her life, what does this idea then of the quantity of the sea relate to?
It's about be careful from the appearance. Maria's life looks like a regular life. She has a job, she has a boyfriend, her boyfriend is perfect. She has a family, but she needs to be super careful. We need to be careful with people because in every life there is something we don't know. We know that. Also in such a great and powerful and admired element like the sea, there could be something that you don't think at the first sight. All that marvelous water is a water that can't fulfill your needs can't stop you to be thirsty. So she needs to find in this book, in the 24 hours that I described in the book, she needs to find a different source, a different kind of water that really is her element.
There's that image that you have in the novel where Maria dips her big toe into the sea to test the temperature. And I think that's very revealing. There's basically this default, which is not to trust anything or anybody. It's a deeply ingrained warning mechanism, which tells her something bad is going to happen. So she doesn't trust the process. She doesn't trust the outcome. She never lets her feelings go beyond that big toe in the sea. And that makes daily life quite trying because everything feels like a test she's going to fail.
It's very interesting. And I think I feel this. I feel in this way. And Maria does for different reasons, but she does too.
I like this idea that nothing has changed. There is that kind of sense of daring throughout the book. How much further is Maria going to go? How far is she going to take this kind of exploration? And each kind of page, the book asks itself, where's Maria going to take this next? Is she going to dip her foot in? Is she going to, to extend the metaphor? Is she going to submerge, herself in this, what her life is becoming? Because this series is all about what's beneath the surface. There's a lot of that in this novel. There's a lot of unseen processes, and we've talked about that here, the kind of depths and what we see beneath, sea level, if you will. We have Maria, who's confronting some things about her past, some quite dark memories, her relationship with her mother, Nicola, and his, this anxiety that he has. Where did you start with this novel? What came, was it the image of the sea? Was it something else completely?
Maybe I started from the end. And of course, we can't reveal it today, but I think that, yes, the first thing I thought that crossed my mind was a woman alone with the sea, in charge of her own destiny, in charge of herself, just her and the sea, a big space that she needs to take a big decision. So I started from there, even if then I wrote the book starting from page 1. And go farther. I never like jumping scenes and coming back. It was like a flow from the beginning, but I started from the idea of a young woman that needs to confront herself just with the elements of the nature to find an answer inside.
Clarissa, I've heard sort of translators who have different methods of translation, start in different points and work on different points, but how much does this kind of the narrative influence how you translate?
I think my method puts me in the same position as a reader because I never, ever read the novel before I start translating. And that's my cardinal rule. So that, translators are very, very deep readers, obviously, but my first draft is as if I were a reader in slow motion. So it's like a kind of agonizingly slowed down feeling of this thing that I think Erica Mou does in the book, which is this thing you're talking about, this disorientation, which makes you almost seasick because there's that kind of anticipation. There's the butterflies that you don't know what's going on. You're going backwards and forwards, as you said. But there's also this accumulation of details, this stratification that Erica talks about, the layering, the sedimenting, the repetition, this kind of oversharing sometimes and then pulling back that just, creates all these questions, unanswered questions. And as a translator, I am literally in the middle of that.
That's so interesting. You don't read before you translate.
But obviously then we do multiple drafts and corrections after that. But it's the feeling of being in that same position as the reader that I need to kind of to keep me going as well.
Erica, were you both aware of this? Because I just think that sort of really it encapsulates the feeling that you do get in this novel. I'm not sure if that's helped impart that sense or not, but is this something that you both discussed?
We discussed a little bit later when Clarissa started to translate, and I think I didn't know about what she said, that she started translating while she was reading for the first time. And I think this is very interesting and also explains why I feel that this is a very, very, very good translation. Because if you think about it, me as a writer, I didn't write something before a draft of my book. I started writing the book. And because you want to keep the energy of the love at the first sight, of the first impression. And this is something that, for example, I do really miss into the music business, because we write songs so much time before actually recording it. So every time that I go in a recording studio, that I enter a recording studio, I'm afraid that I've lost that fire. But with writing, this can be preserved a little bit longer. And I think that Clarissa preserved it into her translation. Maybe now I know also why, but also
well, I refused. I don't let myself turn the page and look ahead. And so it is that feeling of forging forward and finding out as you're doing it what's happening. And I think your style reflects that so much, because you're putting off that moment all the way through the book. Maria is putting off the moment of revealing.
After that, of course, we worked a lot together to find that super interesting and super hard compromise between languages. And this is something that I think we built together, also being a little bit punk.
I mean, it was obviously the collaboration was most apparent in the poems that link the chapters. And when Erica and I were working on them together, I would read them out loud rhythmically. And then we just changed them completely. It was just like, okay, let's throw that out of the window and start again. And we started just whittling them down to their most basic elements of wordplay and rhythm. And of course, the division of the novel into 24 hours made this idea of rhythm incredibly important. And the passing of time, the description of activities in real time, etc. But when we actually got down to thinking about those images, we just totally scrapped what was there in Italian and started again, because what was important was to Erica was kind of the overview from going back to the chapter before and going forward to the chapter ahead. And at the same time, taking apart that compound word and putting it back together again with a new meaning. So it was this constant sort of back reaching and forward reaching that just was very hard to translate in the words that were originally there in Italian. So it really was, as I say in the translator's note, it really was, I think, recreation in this particular example, but completely collaborative. In fact, Erica and I kept getting new ideas. I would wake up in the middle of the night with a new idea, jot it down, send it to Erica the next day, and that process went on for quite a few weeks after even after I'd handed in the manuscript.
So these are the kind of small poems that break up each section. These then, I guess, are small rhythms, verse, small rhythms that break up other kind of rhythms, such as sleep, eating, bodily. And what I find, what's really interesting about that is that, Clarissa, you're waking up in the middle of the night and sending over, in between your sleep rhythms or what have you, and you know, your circadian rhythms and what have you, and sending these over to Erica. So you definitely get this sense within the book that it's suffused with this, I guess you can call it rhythm. As musicians, do you think this was implicated? Do you think you were supported in this sense? Or is this just, you know, is this about being just in touch with, I don't know, nature or just the kind of, you know, elements of the world?
It came to me naturally because, as you said, I'm a singer-songwriter. So when I deal with words, I always think I think about the meaning, of course, but also a lot about sounds, about like the melody there is into the words, and that's why we collaborated a lot with Clarissa for the translation of the poems, because I think that especially with the small poetries there are into the book, in that place rhythm is super important, sound is super important. So sometimes we need to change something in order to keep this kind of marriage, wedding, I don't know, between sound and meaning. So I think that the rhythm is also essential because we have just 24 hours to tell a story that lasts 30 years. So we have this sense of rush, this sense of increase. The rhythm is constantly increased and then slow down for the final part.
There was also the element of, Maria's insomnia. The fact that sometimes the description of the activities is almost in real time.
You're so right, because I still don't know how English readers will receive the book, but I know that I was super enthusiastic when readers in Italy told me that they read the book like it was real time. So a lot of people texted me, wrote me, mailed me, telling me I read the book in 24 hours, and it looks like I was living that.
The non-verbal communication, which is partly the melody that Erica was talking about, is also really, really important, because this, just as in music, silence and pauses and tone of voice adds, or just even in speaking, tone of voice can change everything, but it's non-verbal, if you like. It's incredibly important in this novel. I think the non-verbal is very, very strong, even though Erica is a very verbal thinker and Maria is a very, very verbal person. She uses words almost as a tick, but what is the undercurrent, speaking about the sea, is this non-verbal tone, and the irony, but also the pauses and the silences.
And also a lot of words she thinks are never let out into the air, never reach the person that
the surface.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing about the avoidance. I mean, the avoidance mechanism in Maria and the procrastination is what makes the 24 hours seem like 30 years, but 30 years are squeezed into 24 hours. But this stretching out time so excruciatingly just to avoid getting to the actual crux of the thing, it somehow creates in the reader all these unspoken questions. So they're all, you're asking what actually happened. Why is this day important? Why is Maria so damaged? Where are the answers? And the unspoken questions that are spontaneously generated in the reader, but never, ever actually written in the text.
So now you're going to hear a reading. First, you'll hear Clarissa reading in English, and you'll hear Erica reading in Italian.
I remember that when I was a little girl, I used to cry a lot. I threw a tantrum once because I wanted a balloon, one of the few memories I have of myself from when I was that young. I must have been about 5 or 6. There were lights strung up and stalls, and I was crying, and my mother finally gave in and bought it, the star-shaped polka dot helium balloon. The man at the stall I can only remember his hands, tied it around my wrist. I was proud for a minute or two. Then tears welled up in my eyes again. I felt I was suffocating. I opened and shut my hands until I managed to wriggle out of the knot, and until, without letting any of the grown-ups see, I was able to let the balloon go. Up it went into the sky, growing smaller and smaller as I grew lighter and lighter. I followed it with my gaze, just as I would watch a guest walking down the garden path as I waved goodbye. We were accomplices, me and my polka dot star. But my mother didn't understand, and to make me happy, she bought me another one. We took it home. I hated it. Every day it shrunk a little. The first one, instead, by becoming a dot in the sky, had grown huge. We waited a week before throwing balloon number 2 away, so shriveled and sad that at night I was scared to share a room with it. That was the moment I started to want to grow up in a hurry, to have my own wallet with my own money, so that I could finally choose not to buy anything for myself. I don't know whether I ever wanted what I asked for. I don't think I ever actually asked for anything.
Mi ricordai che una sera, da bambina, piangevo tanto. Facevo i capricci perché volevo un palloncino. Uno dei pochi ricordi chiari che ho di me, da così piccola. Forse avevo 5 o 6 anni. C'erano le luminarie e le bancarelle e io piangevo e mia madre alla fine cedette e me lo comprò, il palloncino a elio a forma di stella, macchiata di pois. Il signore della bancarella, di cui ricordo solo le mani, me lo legò al polso. Fui fiera per qualche minuto. Poi mi tornarono le lacrime agli occhi, mi sentivo soffocare e piegavo e ripiegavo le dita della mano fino a che riuscirono a liberarsi dal filo e fino a che, senza farmi vedere dai grandi, lo lasciai andare nel vento. Lui se ne andava, nel cielo, e diventava sempre più piccolo, mentre io diventavo sempre più leggera. Lo seguivo con lo sguardo, come si segue un ospite che si allontana sul vialetto di casa, facendogli ciao con la mano. Eravamo complici, io e la stella pois. Ma mia madre non capì e per farmi felice me ne comprò un altro. Lo portammo a casa, lo odiavo. Ogni giorno diventava più piccolo. Il primo, invece, facendosi puntino nel cielo, era diventato grande. Avevamo aspettato 1 settimana prima di buttarlo via, il palloncino numero 2, così aggrinzito e triste che di notte avevo paura a condividerci la stanza. Da allora cominciai a desiderare di diventare grande in fretta, avere il mio portafogli con i miei soldi per scegliere finalmente di non comprarmici niente. Non lo so se ho mai voluto quello che ho chiesto. Non credo, in effetti, di aver chiesto mai.
I guess it's difficult to write something about the unsaid, but there's lots of, white space. It's kind of if it is taking something from poetry, and the white space on the page is kind of indicating that there are things not coming to the surface. What I find interesting in relation to that is your sections of dialogue. There's not loads of dialogue, but when there is, it's quite key, and we learn quite a lot about the characters, and it kind of humanizes, I think, in a way, sort of Maria and particularly the mother, and you kind of see this, you get a sense of the interplay between the characters, what the kind of choices are made, I guess, around that dialogue, because you don't have a lot of, there's not loads of time in this novel. It's not a big novel.
First of all, the book is setting into Maria. We are into her mind, into her thoughts. So for sure, that's why her point of view is the only one we know, and it's predominant, and it's very strong, and it's kind of bossy around all the book. But I wanted to, at least those are dialogues that she reports to us, so it's not sure that those are true. That I wanted that she was that sometimes in some pages she needs to be contradicted. In some pages she needs to find another person.
She looks for it. She's almost looking for a foil all the time. She's looking for something to go and bang her head against.
Yeah, and we need to know sometimes another voice, another point of view. And Liam, maybe you spoke about it with other writers. You know, dialogues are the worst thing to write, are the most difficult things to write, because it's where you need to be real. I choose to do it a few times, but in the most honest way I could, not overuse the dialogue and use it like a weapon against Maria.
That's very interesting. By the dialogue, by speech, by dialogue, by these conversations being, out in the world with another person, you think they are contradicting the character and the story that Maria is telling us?
Sometimes, yes, because for example, for the mother, you think that the mother sometimes she portrays her like much worse than what she is. Her mother is a woman that has suffered a lot, and she tries to do her best to keep the family united. But in Maria's memory, her mother, she's very hard, and she's right in a way, because when we can say that.
No spoilers.
This is not a spoiler actually, because it happened at the beginning of the book, but when something bad happened to Maria's family 25 years before, Maria was a child, so a child in danger is always right. But at the same time, she's very, very hard. She's very tough towards her family. But when we read her mother's words into dialogues, I think that we feel more connected to the mother than we are when we just read about her.
And we see the process as well of the relationship and the becoming an adult of Maria, because part of the process of making decisions is also becoming an adult.
Yeah, the mother is incredibly, she's this fantastic character, never really get the full sense of who she is.
That scene where Maria's mother is vomiting, it's a memory that really matters to Maria, because her mother was vomiting because she was pregnant at that time. So she was pregnant of estate, translated with summer, Maria's little sister, and is the first memory that Maria has. So from that time, and then other things happen, she associates sometimes life and death with food, with things that you get in order to develop a life. So from the first time, her first memory, she connects in her brain food with life.
It's literally her first memory of her sister. If you think about it, it was the germ of her sister that was being somehow rejected.
Yes, not only because the book is divided in 4 parts and each part is a meal of the day. So instead of seasons, we have meals, but also because it concerns food. It's a matter also of generosity. Like Maria needs to prepare herself to let things in, and she never did it before. So she needs to be generous, not only because I think that generosity is not just a matter of giving, and Maria is super good in giving. She does a job that is about giving presents to people. But the true generosity is being able also to receiving, to let people of your life, to let things of your life come into your body, into your mind.
It just feels like I've not read, certainly in a while, I guess, a book where I've sort of had to kind of second guess what I thought I knew about what happened. I came away sort of, did that happen? Did this happen? I like to think that this is because of how the book's written, rather than me being a poor reader or a poor podcast host. So I hope you quite, you enjoy that kind of sense that you do give me, and I think, other readers as well.
I love this. I love that. I think that I can't ask the reader to understand everything, because sometimes me too, I need to understand better what I wrote. And this is something magical about art in general, and about words, and about a story. You see just something, and this is why books don't expire, because after 1 year you can read it again and find something new.
And I think depending on your own experience as well as a reader, reading Conversations was with a man, with the client, Maria's favorite client. He is sort of like her perfect foil, really, because he's the one that actually makes her, he's the only one who doesn't take her no for an answer, and that who basically doesn't accept any of her are we allowed to say accepting her shit? No, I don't know. He doesn't accept her bullshit. I think, the character of Nicola, that sort of controlling way of loving, is also something that's very important for men to.
And for me, for example, the most mysterious character is her father. For me, it's the one that I would like to know better, because it's the one that she desperately wants back in her life. I always say this is like a very long song without a melody. So it's like in songs, we have lost a lot of definitions and boundaries. And when you listen to a song, you never ask yourself if this is about who is singing it. And so I wrote it like it was a song, keeping my emotions, but choosing another picture, a painting where I can put my emotion in.
So what then, what's next then, Erica? You spoke about some of the things that the novel gives you that songwriting and singing doesn't, but where's next for you, do you think?
I think that now the first things that this book gave me was I was producing a podcast where I wrote stories of different women I met in my life, and every story has in common a point in their lives where all the protagonists escape from something, and they can recollect the exact moment when they escape from, could be a person or a place or a feeling, or in one of the episodes was a room. So this is what I did now. I think this is very connected to my experience as a book writer, and now I'm touring with my music, because I just released the new album, so I'm touring around Italy, and I'm writing. I wrote 7 pages of a new book. I don't know where this will bring me. at the beginning of another journey, and I always compose music, and I'm super thrilled about Thirsty Sea be out.
Thirsty Sea is out in May. Clarissa, Erica, thank you so much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure, Liam, talking to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye,
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
That's it. Series 3, Episode 1 done and dusted. Beneath the Surface is underway. Now, if you'd like a copy of Thirsty Sea, published by Héloïse Press, it's out in May this year. Do join me next time for the next episode of the Rippling Pages podcast. I'm going to be joined by the poet Richard Price, and he's here to talk to me about his book, Owner of the Sea.